Did you know that South Carolina is home to the world's rarest plant, or that the state sits right in the path of nature's most powerful conveyor belt? About the fact that South Carolina became the unlikely site of America's most terrifying military accident? Well, these are all true, and there's plenty more wild facts about South Carolina that you probably never knew. So buckle up, because we're about to take you through 50 of them. Fact 50. Ancient wind-ridden bays. Did you know that thousands of strange oval-shaped dents are scattered all over South Carolina, and no one knows exactly how they got there? These shallow depressions found across the Atlantic coastal plain have confused scientists for years. Some people blame UFOs or a giant meteor, but the most likely explanation is that wind and water shaped them during the Ice Age between 15,000 and 100,000 years ago. What really adds to the mystery is that they all seem to line up in the same northwest to southeast direction. Even today, experts are still debating where they came from. Fact 49. Atomic bomb misdrop. On March 11, 1958, South Carolina became the site of one of the strangest and scariest military accidents in U.S. history. A U.S. Air Force crew accidentally dropped a 7,600-pound nuclear bomb on the small community of Mars Bluff. Luckily, the bomb wasn't armed with its nuclear core, but the regular explosives still went off, leaving a massive crater 75 feet wide and 30 feet deep, and destroying a local family's home. Amazingly, no lives were lost. Locals later joked it just made a big hole, but the dent is still there today. A tree-covered crater on private land, and a reminder that this peaceful patch was almost a disaster zone. Fact 48. Almost all the bays are gone. Once, there were around 200,000 Carolina bays spread across South Carolina and nearby states, but today, nearly 97% of them are gone, drained, filled in, or wiped out by development. These mysterious oval-shaped wetlands, often called dune ponds, were once a unique part of the region's natural environment. Now, most have been lost to farmland, neighborhoods, and city growth. It's a major loss of both rare ecosystems and the natural history they represented, with only a small number still remaining. Fact 47. Carnivorous plants of the South. South Carolina's wetlands aren't just full of peaceful plants, they're hunting grounds. This is one of the only places on Earth where over 24 species of carnivorous plants thrive, turning swamps into insect death traps. These wild plants have evolved to catch and eat bugs simply because water and sunlight just weren't enough. You'll find pitcher plants that lure insects into deep, slippery pits, Venus flytraps that snap shut in a blink, sticky sundews that trap anything that lands, and even underwater bladderworts that suck prey in like tiny vacuums. The Carolinas are home to more than half of America's carnivorous plant species, making this region a true hotspot for some of nature's most unexpected predators. Fact 46. Longest Blackwater River. The Edisto River starts in South Carolina's Piedmont and flows about 250 miles all the way to the Atlantic. It's the longest free-flowing Blackwater River in North America, and the only major river system in the state that stays entirely within South Carolina. As it moves through quiet cypress swamps and pine-filled wetlands, its dark tea-colored waters slowly shape the land, forming twisting bayous and hidden lakes. The Edisto's calm, steady flow offers a rare look at one of the state's most untouched and naturally rich river systems. Fact 45. Underwater coral canyons. In 2018, scientists found something straight out of science fiction. Huge, white reef structures deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean off South Carolina's coast. Over 200 feet below the surface, in total darkness, a little-known coral called Lophelia has been building massive deep-sea reefs. Some of these rise over 300 feet tall, about the height of the Statue of Liberty, and stretch for 85 miles along the ocean floor. It's one of the largest deep-water reef systems ever found, and almost no one knew it was there. Imagine a hidden city deep beneath the ocean, towering white coral formations covered in barnacles and home to creatures that live in total darkness. These aren't the warm water corals you'd see in the tropics. Lophelia corals grow in cold, deep waters off South Carolina's coast, building huge underwater mounds on the Blake Plateau. It wasn't until 2018 that scientists fully mapped this massive reef system, revealing a strange, alien-like world just offshore. It turns out South Carolina isn't just beaches and marshes. There's an entire deep-sea ecosystem hiding below the surface that most people have never heard of. Fact 44. Congaree's 17-story pine. One of the most incredible sights in South Carolina is a massive loblolly pine that stands over 167 feet tall, about as high as a 17-story building in Congaree National Park. It's the tallest known tree of its kind in the eastern U.S. and just one of 25 record-breaking trees in the park. Thanks to giants like this, Congaree is often called the Redwoods of the East. It's a place where you can walk through a forest of towering trees that have been growing for centuries. A reminder of what much of the Southeast once looked like. Fact 43. Eastern old-growth jewel. Congaree National Park isn't just home to tall trees. It also protects the largest remaining stretch of untouched bottomland hardwood forest in the entire U.S., covering about 11,000 acres. This thick, swampy forest is filled with towering bald cypress, tupelo, oaks, and again, loblolly pines. Some areas have never been logged, while others haven't been disturbed since at least 1914. That makes Congaree one of the last truly wild floodplain forests east of the Mississippi, a rare place where nature has been left to grow and thrive just as it did centuries ago. Fact 42. Glowing firefly displays. One of the most unusual natural events in the U.S. takes place every spring in Congaree National Park. Fireflies that blink in perfect sync. For about 2 weeks between mid-May and mid-June, tens of thousands of Photurus frontalis fireflies flash together at the exact same time. It's not random. Each blink is perfectly timed, lighting up the dark forest in a pulsing rhythm. This rare event only happens in a few places on Earth, and Congaree is one of them, attracting people from all over to witness the glowing floodplain in person. Fact 41. Million-year-old swamp. Inside the Francis Beadler Forest, Four Hole Swamp holds the title for the largest untouched cypress tupelo swamp left on the planet. Some of the bald cypress trees here are over 1,000 years old, meaning they started growing before the time of Charlemagne. This forest is a living time capsule, protected to preserve its wild, untouched state. Walking through it feels like stepping into the past, with ancient trees and still waters that have barely changed in centuries. Fact 40. Cypress knees are skyscrapers. In the swamps of Congaree, the bald cypress trees grow unusual wooden structures called knees that rise straight out of the ground, and some of them reach up to 7.5 feet tall. These knobby roots look like wooden towers poking through the swamp, giving the forest floor an almost otherworldly appearance. While you might see smaller versions in other swamps, Congarees are on a whole different level, standing tall like nature's own strange sculptures shaped by time and water. Fact 39. South Carolina's Sinkhole Wonderland. Beneath Santee State Park lies one of South Carolina's wildest underground areas. Over thousands of years, groundwater slowly wore away the limestone bedrock, creating the maze of tunnels, sinkholes, and hidden passageways. In some spots, the ground has collapsed, opening deep pits as much as 30 feet down, and others, narrow shafts called chimneys, reveal underground rivers quietly flowing below the surface. It's a reminder that the ground beneath your feet is far from solid, and that South Carolina's underground world is just as impressive as what's above. Fact 38. South Carolina's only cave complex. The Santee sinkholes are part of South Carolina's only real cave system, tucked away in a rare patch of limestone near Lake Marion. This karst area is so unique that park rangers call it a true geological gym. Visitors can peek into chimney holes and see water flowing under broken rock ceilings, right in the middle of a forest. As we said, these sinkholes and small caves were formed by water slowly dissolving the limestone underground. While they aren't giant caverns, they're still South Carolina's only natural cave network, giving us a rare look at what's going on beneath the surface. Fact 37. Fossils in the Muddy River. Divers in Charleston's Cooper River have found a bunch of Ice Age fossils hidden underwater, including giant shark teeth, mastodon bones, and mammoth tusks. These murky waters are filled with ancient remains, turning the riverbed into a kind of underwater museum. One of the most notable finds is a 30-inch mastodon tusk, now on display at a local museum. Fact 36. Megalodon teeth in the Palmetto State. Scuba divers searching for the remains of ancient sharks have discovered yet another treasure trove in the muddy waters of the Cooper River. Divers have found teeth up to 7.6 inches long from the giant shark Paparocles megalodon, which dominated the oceans during the Miocene era. Consider this: divers in South Carolina are actually discovering artifacts from the past, teeth from enormous creatures that could easily swallow great white sharks. It's a wild reminder that massive sea creatures once swam right where people dive today. Fact 35. A supersized estuary. Winya Bay, near Georgetown, is where 4 rivers come together and flow into the Atlantic Ocean. It's the 3rd largest estuary system on the East Coast, with a watershed that stretches all the way to the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina. Only Chesapeake Bay and North Carolina's Albemarle-Pamlico system are bigger. This massive area of tidal rivers and marshes creates an incredibly rich ecosystem, home to countless fish, birds, and other wildlife. Its size and diversity make Winya Bay one of the most important natural habitats on the coast. Fact 34. Million Lily River. At Lansford Canal State Park along the Catawba River, something amazing happens every spring. In May and June, the river's rapids come alive with hundreds of thousands of blooming white spire lilies. Covering about 20 acres, it's the largest patch of these rare flowers anywhere in the world. From a short distance, it looks like the river is blanketed in snow. It's a peaceful, one-of-a-kind scene that draws visitors every year to see nature put on a show. Fact 33. Tea-colored waters. Here's a weird but true fact that might surprise you. Many of South Carolina's rivers, like the Edisto, Santee, and Waccamaw, look like they're filled with tea or cola. That dark color comes from tannins, which are natural chemicals released by rotting leaves and tree bark. As the water flows through swamps and forests, it sucks up these tannins, turning a deep amber. Even though the water looks dark, it's actually really clear with little sediment, so you can still see into the swampy depths. It's just one of the ways nature leaves its mark on the land and water. Fact 32. Flytrap's native home. The Venus flytrap isn't just famous, it's also incredibly rare. This strange little plant is only found in one small part of the world, within 75 miles of Wilmington, North Carolina. That's it. Nowhere else on Earth. In South Carolina, you can still find wild flytraps growing in acidic bogs, like the Lewis Ocean Bay Preserve, where they lie in wait for unsuspecting insects. Every wild Venus flytrap you've ever seen comes from this tiny region in the Carolinas, making it one of the most unique and local plants in the world. Fact 31. 90% of all Oconee bells. South Carolina is full of rare plants, and the Oconee bell might be one of the most special of them all. This delicate wildflower grows in just a few quiet mountain stream areas, and nearly 90% of all Oconee bells in the world bloom right here in the Jokasee Gorges. Each spring in early April, a trail in Devil's Fork State Park comes alive with thousands of tiny bell-shaped flowers. It's like walking through a hidden tunnel of gold, a one-of-a-kind sight you won't find anywhere else on Earth. Fact 30. Mini trout streams. Did you know South Carolina's Piedmont doesn't have stocked salmon or trout? But way up in the mountains, a few clear, icy creeks still hold native brook trout. These rare fish survive in small pockets in places like Oconee and Jackson counties. Local anglers treat these hidden streams like well-kept secrets, because they're some of the last spots where these wild mountain trout still live, making them a quiet treasure in South Carolina's backcountry. Fact 29. Woodpecker condo forests. The longleaf pine forests in Francis Marion National Forest are a key home for one of America's rarest birds, the red-cocketed woodpecker. These birds only nest in old pine trees, and South Carolina's coastal plain is one of the few places where they still live naturally, without needing human-made nesting boxes. At one point, this forest held the 2nd largest wild population in the country, making it an important stronghold for keeping the species alive. Fact 28. Ancient sand mountains. Imagine standing in central South Carolina and realizing you're standing on what used to be a beach over 100 million years ago. The Sandhills region isn't just quiet countryside, it's made up of ancient dunes left behind by a prehistoric ocean. Back then, winds pushed massive waves of sand all the way from the Appalachian Mountains, forming ridges along the shoreline that's long since disappeared. Today, the area looks like typical pine forest and farmland, but just beneath the surface lies the old beach sand. Proof that what seems like solid ground is actually a slice of deep geologic history. Fact 27. Granite domes and tors. The mountains in upstate South Carolina are full of massive granite domes that almost look man-made. At places like Table Rock or Stone Mountain, these huge rock faces are slowly peeling apart, layer by layer, in a natural process called exfoliation. Over time, pressure builds deep underground, and when it's finally released, the granite cracks and sheds its curved sheets. Some the size of buildings. The result? Huge stacked rock formations that look like someone arranged them on purpose. But it's just nature at work, slowly revealing the ancient rock beneath the Blue Ridge. Fact 26. Gulf Stream Warm Water Highway. Did you know that South Carolina sits right in the path of one of the ocean's strongest currents? The Gulf Stream is like a fast-moving river of warm Caribbean water rushing up the Atlantic, right past our coast. It can reach speeds over 4 miles per hour and carries heat nutrients all the way up the eastern seaboard. When it hits an area of the seafloor called the Charleston Bump, it shifts direction and stirs up nutrients, creating one of the most active underwater zones on Earth. This current doesn't just shape the ocean, it helps keep South Carolina's winters mild and cools down summer heat. And by pulling up nutrients from the deep, it supports coral reefs, fish, and tons of marine life just offshore. Fact 25, the world's most exclusive flower. The bunched arrowhead is one of the rarest plants on Earth, and it only grows in one tiny spot near Greenville, South Carolina. This small white marsh flower lives in just 2 wetland areas covering about 5 square miles. That's the entire global population. If these wetlands disappear, so does the species. To protect it, conservationists built a boardwalk so visitors wouldn't accidentally step on them. It's a reminder of how fragile and unique local ecosystems can be. Sometimes the rarest life on the planet is hiding right in our backyard. Fact 24. Sticky sundews everywhere. In the bogs and wetlands of South Carolina, especially places like Lewis Ocean Bay Preserve, tiny plants sparkle in the sun like scattered jewels. But look closer. Those tiny droplets aren't just pretty, they're deadly. These are sundews, small carnivorous plants that trap insects in their sticky dew. Once a bug lands, it's stuck for good. Thousands of them cover the red, sandy soil, turning the ground into a natural insect trap. It's one of the most surprising survival tricks in nature, and it's happening quietly in South Carolina's wild, overlooked wetlands. Fact 23. Heartleaf's secret spring. Tucked deep in South Carolina's Piedmont, a cool mossy springs where water seeps through the ground, lives one of the state's rarest plants, the dwarf heartleaf. It's so well hidden and rare that most people will never see one. Found only in a few secret spots, like a small creek bed near Spartanburg, this endangered plant lives with tiny, jug-shaped flowers and heart-shaped leaves that blend right into the forest floor. It's a master of hiding out, thriving in damp, shady places where almost nothing else grows. A quiet survivor in one of the state's most overlooked environments. Fact 22. Edisto's living sanctuary. The Edisto River doesn't just cut through South Carolina. It flows through one of the wildest, most untouched places left on the East Coast. Around 85% of its floodplain forest is still intact, which is incredibly rare today. This massive wetland is packed with life. Endangered red-cockaded woodpeckers nest in tall longleaf pines. Bald eagles fly overhead, and wood storks wander through the dark, shallow waters. The huge cypress and tupelo trees form a thick, towering canopy, hiding all kinds of species below, from otters and gators to rare orchids and bug-eating plants. It's one of the last true wilderness corridors in the region. Fact 21. One of the most biodiverse river systems. The Edisto River is basically an underwater Noah's Ark. 207 different fish species call it home, making it one of the most biodiverse river systems on the entire East Coast. From the ancient sturgeon that outlived the dinosaurs to striped bass racing through the currents, this river hosts an incredible fish party that includes trout, shad, eels, catfish, and dozens of species most anglers have never heard of. Those protected wetlands we talked about, they're the secret to this underwater explosion of life, creating the perfect nursery for 87 freshwater species and 120 estuarine and marine species to thrive side by side. Fact 20. Crystal clear Jocassee Lake. Lake Jocassee isn't just clear, it's Caribbean clear, sitting in the middle of South Carolina's mountains like a piece of liquid glass. So we can see why it got its title of South Carolina's clearest lake. This man-made marvel in the Jocassee Gorges offers something most freshwater lakes can't. Visibility so pristine that divers regularly report seeing 50 feet down on summer dives, watching sunbeams pierce the depths like underwater spotlights. What makes it so magical? The lake is fed by ice-cold trout streams that keep the water crystal clear, creating an underwater world where submerged church steeples and drowned trees stand frozen in time beneath the surface. It's so spectacularly clear that Jocassee ranks among the world's top freshwater dive sites. Fact 19. America's only breeding stork. Imagine a giant bird with a 5-foot wingspan flying over South Carolina's coastal wetlands. This is the American wood stork. It's the only stork that breeds in the U.S., and you'll only find nesting colonies in Florida, Georgia, and right here in South Carolina. Standing about 3 feet tall, it looks like something straight out of the prehistoric past. Spotting one gliding over the marshes feels like stepping back in time, like seeing a piece of old America's wild wetlands still alive today. Fact 18. returning kite of the floodplain. The swallow-tailed kite used to be seen all over the U.S., from Minnesota down to Florida. But today, this black and white bird with its long forked tail is only found in parts of the southeast, and South Carolina is one of its last strongholds. In the summer, you might spot one flying over the Francis Marion National Forest or the Santee and Edisto rivers, gliding smoothly above the treetops. As their range gets smaller, South Carolina's wetlands have become one of the few safe places left for them. Fact 17. Protected loggerhead beaches. Every summer, South Carolina's barrier islands become nesting grounds for endangered loggerhead sea turtles. From Edisto to Pawleys Island, these massive turtles, some over 300 pounds, crawl onto the beaches at night to lay their eggs, just like they've done for millions of years. If you're lucky, you might walk along the moonlit beach and spot huge tracks in the sand where one came ashore. It's one of the state's most amazing natural events, and thanks to volunteers who protect the nests each summer, the number of hatchlings is finally starting to rise again. Fact 16. Glowing Milky Way waves. Step into the ocean on a warm South Carolina night, and you might see something otherworldly. As the waves roll in, they glow with neon green and blue flashes, caused by millions of tiny bioluminescent plankton lighting up when disturbed. Locals call them phosphorescent nights, and they happen along beaches from Hilton Head to the Grand Strand. Walk through the surf, and you'll leave glowing footprints behind you, like you're walking through a sea of stars. It's one of the most surreal sights along the Carolina coast. Fact 15. Ancient Sturgeon Hatchery. This one may sound a little crazy, but bear with us. In quiet hatcheries around Charleston, scientists are working to restore one of Earth's most ancient success stories. Atlantic and short-nosed sturgeon are genuine living fossils that are over 75 million years old. These prehistoric fish once thrived in South Carolina's rivers by the millions, massive armored giants that dominated coastal waters long before humans showed up. Today, at facilities like Bears Bluff, biologists carefully rear these ancient survivors to boost wild populations that crashed from overfishing and habitat loss. In modern concrete canals, young sturgeon that look identical to their Cretaceous ancestors grow under expert care, preparing for release back into South Carolina's waters. Fact 14. Plover strategy. The Wilson's plover might be small, but it knows how to put on a show. When a predator, or even a curious beachgoer, gets too close to its nest, this little bird pulls off a clever trick. It pretends to be injured, flapping around in the sand and dragging its wing like it's hurt. The plover plays the part perfectly to draw attention away from its hidden chicks. Once the danger is far enough from the nest, the bird suddenly flies off, completely fine. It's a smart and time-tested strategy that's helped these beach-dwelling birds survive for millions of years. Fact 13. Stripes the turtle ambassador. For the animal lovers out there, meet Stripes, a little black turtle with cheerful yellow polka dots who's become one of South Carolina's most important conservation ambassadors. This spotted turtle at the South Carolina Aquarium represents something increasingly rare. A species that once thrived in Carolina wetlands but has quietly slipped toward extinction while most people weren't looking. Spotted turtles are naturally shy, secretive creatures that most South Carolinians will never encounter in the wild anymore. That's what makes Stripes so special. He's not just a charming aquarium resident, but a crucial part of a regional breeding program working to save his species from disappearing entirely. When you visit Stripes in Charleston, you are meeting a living symbol of what we stand to lose, and what dedicated conservationists are fighting to preserve in South Carolina's vanishing wetlands. Fact 12. Pine Savanna Salamander. The frosted flatwood salamander is one of South Carolina's most secretive animals. It lives almost its entire life underground, hiding out in old crayfish burrows in the longleaf pine sandhills. You'll only see it on rare, rainy nights when it emerges all at once to breed. Found only in parts of South Carolina and Georgia, it's one of the most limited species in the southeast. What makes it especially important? Salamanders like this one are early warning signs for the environment. Because of their sensitive skin, they're often the first to vanish if water or habitat quality starts to decline. Fact 11. Rock crag salamander. Here's a wild Appalachian secret. Deep in the granite cliffs of northern South Carolina lives a tiny creature most people have never heard of, the rock crag salamander. You'll only find it in a few misty, moss-covered spots in Oconee and Greenville counties. These 3 to 4 inch salamanders are so well camouflaged, they look like part of the rock itself, blending right in with the green speckled granite. What's really crazy, they've been isolated on these exact cliffs for thousands of years and can't survive anywhere else. They don't even have lungs. They breathe through their skin, which means they depend completely on the damp, cool air of their mountain ledges to stay alive. Fact 10. Hidden Lady's Slipper, hidden deep in the bogs of South Carolina's upstate, is one of the state's rarest and most protected plants. The Pink Lady's Slipper orchid. With its bright pink, slipper-shaped bloom, it looks like something out of a movie. But you won't find it just anywhere. These orchids grow in only a few secret spots, including a closely guarded colony in the Ellicott Rock Wilderness. What makes them even more special, they can take nearly 20 years to bloom for the first time and rely on a specific soil fungus just to survive. Every spring, just a handful of them poke through the moss. Botanists are so careful about their locations that they barely talk about them, because one wrong step could wipe out years of growth in seconds. Fact 9. Ice Age Blue Hole. Right in the middle of South Carolina's pine-covered coastal plain sits one of the state's most mysterious natural wonders, Blue Hole Falls. This bright blue spring looks like a glowing gemstone dropped into the forest. There's no creek or river feeding it. Instead, water bubbles up straight from deep underground, creating what locals call an endless aquamarine abyss. No one knows exactly how deep it goes. Divers have gone down over 100 feet and still haven't hit the bottom, just dark ledges that disappear into more blue. Even during the hottest summers, the water stays icy cold, a sign that it's fed by ancient underground aquifers, possibly dating back to the Ice Age. It's hidden in plain sight along a quiet country road, but it feels like a secret doorway into the Earth's ancient underground. Fact 8. Mountains 2.5 times sea level. Here's a wild fact that flips everything you think you know about South Carolina's geography. The state's highest point, Sassafras Mountain, the state's highest peak at 3,560 feet, sits just 200 feet from Lake Jocassee. Yet the lake lies 1,000 feet above sea level. That means some valleys around here drop more than 2,500 feet, steeper than parts of the Rockies. What's even crazier, Lake Jocassee is actually a flooded mountain basin. Back in the 1970s, when a dam was built, an entire stretch of rugged Appalachian terrain was swallowed by water. So if you're standing on a cliff overlooking the lake, you're not just seeing water, you're staring straight down into what used to be a deep forested gorge, now buried under hundreds of feet of crystal clear blue. Fact 7. Southern Bald Cypress Range. This one's a total geographical curveball that will also make you rethink South Carolina's ecosystems. Those towering bald cypress trees in Congaree National Park and Four Hole Swamp, the ones with their knobby knees poking through the dark water, are actually living at the far northern edge of where they can survive. These iconic southern swamp trees aren't just surviving here, they're thriving, even though you'd expect to only find them way down in places like Louisiana. In fact, the same species that line South Carolina's floodplain forest also grow deep in the Bayou Taché, over 800 miles to the southwest. That means South Carolina isn't just home to some of the most stunning cypress swamps in the country. It's also where these ancient trees make their northernmost stand, bringing a piece of the deep South Bayou to the edge of the Carolinas. Fact 6. Carolina Bays spark biodiversity. South Carolina's mysterious Carolina Bays aren't just odd shapes on a map. They're hidden hotspots for wildlife. These oval-shaped ponds, scattered across the coastal plain, are seasonal wetlands that fill with rainwater and then dry out, which means no fish. And that's a game changer. Without fish to eat them, frogs, salamanders, and rare insects can thrive. Scientists found something wild. Forests around Carolina Bays have way more amphibians than similar forests without one. That's like each bay flips a switch, turning a quiet pine forest into a buzzing zone of life. Even a single bay in the middle of a field can support more species per acre than some rainforests. These ancient dips in the ground are quietly supercharging South Carolina's wildlife, bringing rare creatures to places you'd least expect. Fact 5. Salt marsh ghost forests. You'll see something that looks like it belongs in a horror movie if you drive along the coast of South Carolina. Whole ghost forests of dead trees rising above the marsh like gray skeletons. At places like Cape Romaine and Waccamaw Wildlife Refuge, rising seas that push saltwater inlet, slowly poisoning pines and oaks that once grew safely above the tide line. These eerie tree graveyards are visible right from the highway, countless silver snags jutting from the water like monuments to changing tides. What you're seeing is the ocean slowly swallowing parts of the coast, reshaping the shoreline in ways that didn't exist just a generation ago. Fact 4. The 1886 Charleston earthquake. On August 31st, 1886, South Carolina experienced the most powerful earthquake in southeastern U.S. history, and it came completely out of nowhere. The Charleston earthquake, measuring up to 7.5 on the Richter scale, struck with such devastating force that it cracked chimneys throughout the city and was felt from Boston all the way to Cuba. The quake was so intense that one terrified Charleston resident famously joked that the peninsula's broken off beneath his feet, and honestly, it probably felt like it. This monster earthquake remains a reminder that South Carolina sits on geological fault lines that most people never think about, capable of unleashing forces that can shake half the continent. Fact 3. Lake Jocossee's sunken town. One of the creepiest secrets in South Carolina is sitting right under Lake Jocassee, a whole town that was flooded and left behind. Back in 1973, when the lake was created by building a dam, places like Mount Carmel Baptist Church and its graveyard were swallowed by the rising water. The church alone had nearly 90 headstones, now resting 130 feet underwater. But here's the really eerie part. Scuba divers say you can still see the church's bell tower, sitting just 20 feet below the surface. So imagine swimming in what looks like a peaceful mountain lake and suddenly seeing a steeple rise up out of the deep. It's like South Carolina's own underwater ghost town, a real-life Atlantis hidden in the hills. Fact 2. The giant peach. In Gaffney, South Carolina, there's a giant peach. But it's not what you think. It's actually a 135-foot-tall water tower shaped like a massive, bright orange peach, complete with a green leaf on top. Locals call it the Peachoy, and it holds 1 million gallons of water. From a distance, it really does look like the world's biggest piece of fruit just hangs out by the highway. It's so bizarre and unforgettable that it even made an appearance in House of Cards on Netflix. Only in South Carolina would someone turn a water tank into a fruit-shaped landmark, and somehow it's perfect. A weird but proud tribute to the state's peach-growing roots. Fact 1. The busted plug. In Columbia, South Carolina, there's a fire hydrant so big it looks like it fell out of a cartoon. It's called Busted Plug Plaza, and it's a 40-foot-tall bright red fire hydrant weighing about 675,000 pounds. Artist Blue Sky built it as a massive tribute to firefighters, and for a while it even sprayed water like a real hydrant. It's no longer active, but it still stands as the world's largest fire hydrant, and it's bigger than most houses. You can't miss it. It's one of the wildest pieces of public art in the country, and definitely the only place where you'll feel tiny standing next to a fire hydrant. What about 50 California geography facts you never knew?